Hola, la semana pasada estudiamos el objeto directo. Hoy vamos a estudiar el objeto directo y el objeto indirecto. Last week we studied the direct object and today we're going to study the direct and indirect object together. El objeto directo es la persona o el objeto que recibe la acción del verbo. What? That was exactly the question that we needed to use to identify the direct object. Because the direct object is the person or the object that answers to who or what that receives the action. On the other hand, el objeto indirecto identifica para quién. The indirect object identifies for whom or to whom. I bought shoes for Antonio Banderas. What did I buy? Shoes. For whom did I buy the shoes? I bought shoes for Antonio Banderas. Who bought the shoes? I bought the shoes. I is the subject pronoun. I bought shoes for Antonio Banderas. What did I do? I bought. Bought is the verb. That's the action. What did I buy? I bought shoes for Antonio Banderas. Since shoes is receiving the action of the verb, shoes is the direct object. What did I buy? Shoes, direct object. For whom? For Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas is now the indirect object. In Spanish it's the same. Yo compré zapatos para Antonio Banderas. ¿Quién compró los zapatos? Yo. Yo es el pronombre. ¿Qué hice? Yo compré. Compré es el verbo. ¿Qué compré? Yo compré zapatos para Antonio Banderas. Zapatos es el objeto directo. ¿Para quién? Para Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas es el objeto indirecto. We can change the direct object for the following pronouns. Los pronombres del objeto directo son me, te, lo, la, nos, os, los, las. Ejemplo, Antonio Banderas me besó. Te amo. Lo, it's masculine singular, so if I say no lo tengo, I could be referring to the book. La, yo la compré. Since la is feminine singular, I could be talking about la falda. Nos, la profe nos habló. Os, ¿quién os habló? Los, yo los compré. In this case, los is plural and masculine, such as los zapatos. Las is feminine and plural. Yo las compré. It could be las blusas. What or who or whom receives the action? Que compré, zapatos, objeto directo. Zapatos is masculine and it is plural, so it changes for the pronoun los, or the direct object pronoun los. Yo los compré. Notice that I wrote my direct object before my verb. Objeto directo, verbo. Pronombre, objeto directo, verbo. That is the right order. Zapatos, los. Yo los compré. Yo compré unas faldas. Faldas, it is plural and it is feminine, so the direct object would be las. Yo las compré. Yo compré un sombrero. Sombrero es masculino y es singular. What pronoun can we use for singular y masculino? We have me, te, lo, la, nos, os, los, or las. Which one is our masculino singular? If you said lo, you are correcto, es correcto. Objeto directo, masculino singular, lo. Yo lo compré. ¿Quién compró los zapatos para Antonio Banderas? Yo los compré. Yo es el objeto, zapatos es el objeto directo, para Antonio Banderas el objeto indirecto. Pronombres del objeto indirecto are me, te, le, nos, os, les. For whom or to whom. If it is for me or to me, I would use me. Mi amor me regaló chocolates. For you informal, te. ¿Quién te regaló esos zapatos nuevos? Le. For you, formal, or for her, or for him. Yo le compré unos zapatos a Antonio Banderas. Le. Notice that I am being redundant. I said le for him, and then I also said a Antonio Banderas. This doesn't happen in English, but it happens in Spanish. We are sometimes redundant when we use le or when we use les, because it could be for you, for her, for him, and in occasions for all of you or for them. Nos, for us. La profe nos dio dulces durante el examencito. Os, for y'all. And you know that they only use it in Spain. Os trajo algo Santa Claus? Les. For you, plural. For them. Les compré una computadora a mis padres. Les is for them or to them, even though we're talking about a singular computer. We still use the plural les because we're talking of the plural for them. Les compré una computadora a mis padres. I bought shoes for Antonio Banderas. Zapatos es el objeto directo y es masculino plural. In this case, es los, masculino plural. Yo los compré. Para Antonio Banderas. Para Antonio Banderas es el objeto indirecto. ¿Cuál es mi objeto indirecto en este caso? Para él, for him. If you said for him, is le, correcto. Yo le compré a Antonio Banderas. And again, this is redundant. Yo le for him and then Antonio Banderas. Notice again that my indirect object pronoun is also before my verb. Objeto directo y verbo, that's the order in which we write the sentence. Yo los compré. I know it sounds different to English because in English you say I bought them or I bought it. In this case, it says I, them, bought. I know it sounds different than in English. Es lo mismo, it is the same with the order of the indirect object. We use objeto indirecto, verbo. Yo le compré zapatos a Antonio Banderas. For him, for him, bought. I know it sounds different than in English. For him, le comes before the verb compré. Objeto indirecto y verbo. That's the correct order. But what happens when we use the objeto indirecto and objeto directo together? When we do that, when we put together objeto indirecto and objeto directo, le and les is going to change to se. And please do not confuse the se with the reflexive. This is a different case. This is changing le and les for the indirect object, le or les, for se, only when you're putting together the indirect object and the direct object. Yo se los compré a Antonio Banderas. Again, indirect object comes before the direct object and then the verb. Objeto indirecto, objeto directo, verbo. Sometimes we can omit the pronoun, the personal pronoun. I could say, yo se los compré a Antonio Banderas, or I simply can say, se los compré, o se los compré a Antonio Banderas. Now, what happens when we have an infinitive verb? Well, you can just like you did with the reflexive, you could use the indirect object, direct object, and verb in that order, or you could attach the indirect and the direct object to the infinitive, like this. Yo voy a comprárselos. But because now you created a very long word, comprárselos, you need to be mindful and add an accent. Yo voy a comprárselos. For now, let's just practice what we, in a simple form. Yo le compré zapatos a Antonio Banderas. Yo se los compré. Again, indirect object, direct object, and verb. You are going to be practicing with the examples that you use when we had the activity of shopping in the classroom, and you wrote sentences such as you have examples such as you bought dress for your cousin or shoes for your mother, etc. Those are the examples that we're going to be using today. For example, yo les compré unas faldas a mis primas. Les, to them. Unas faldas is the direct object, so that would be femenino, plural. A mis primas is the indirect object. So again, yo, indirect object, se, and I wrote se instead of le because I am using also the direct object las, femenino, plural. Yo se las compré. And don't forget, yo le compré zapatos a Antonio Banderas. Don't forget it. Pronoun, indirect object, direct object, verb. Objeto indirecto, objeto directo, verbo. Eso es todo. Vamos a trabajar.